to Stage and Screen with me, Me'sha Bryan. Today I'll be speaking with writer and lyricist Lee Hall, who is perhaps best known for writing the screenplay for Billy Elliot, as well as penning the book and lyrics for its subsequent adaptation into a musical. The story has gone on to win multiple awards, ranging from the BAFTA for Outstanding British Film to several Tony, Olivier and Drama Desk Awards, including Best Musical, Outstanding Book of a Musical and Best Book of a Musical. Lee's multifaceted work spans genres, media and performance outlets, from the silver screen to radio to international theatre. He's currently researching the screenplay for an upcoming film, and he recently adapted Bertolt Brecht's Mother Courage and Her Children, which opened at Hordern Methodist Church a few days ago. I am thrilled and honoured that Lee has taken time out of his busy schedule to speak with me today. And Lee, welcome to the show.
I'm very, very pleased to be here.
Thank you. How is everything going? Because you're busy with the play and with your research and just with life. So how are you juggling all of that?
Well, it's been quite a busy year so far because most of the things I did a long time ago and they've just come into production. So I did an opera at the Royal Opera House, which was kind of mad and fun. And then this production that is a collaboration with a theatre that I worked with in South Africa, and the people from there are working in the next town along from Easington, which is where Billy Elliot's set. And we've been doing a version of Mother Courage, and it's half the South African troupe and half people from the Northeast, and it was fantastic because the South Africans have a lot of the music is South African music, and they play marimbas. And they brought the marimbas with them and have taught the Geordies how to so there's this marimba orchestra, and it's absolutely fantastic. So it's been really exciting because it's like these two bits of the world coming together to make something kind of unique. But it's kind of because it's where Billy Elliot was set. It's like a big journey because it's 25 years since the film came out. It's really nice to be working up in the Northeast again.
I bet it is. And the thing is, it's because you're so international. Like, the Geordies have now been able to learn how to play marimba.
Yeah. I mean, it is amazing. It's an amazing thing that you can bring people together from all sorts of cultures to make something new. It's such a privilege.
Absolutely. Did you have all of the South African music in your head the whole time? Like when you were adapting it, were you thinking, I'm going to get the people that I know, to come over from South Africa and kind of put this together, and you heard it? Or did it kind of develop and grow as you were going along?
I had been working with the company about 10 years ago on a different Brecht play that we were going to do in Cape Town. The company's called the Sango, and they are an all-black company, largely from the townships, Kalisha, which is just outside of Cape Town. But unfortunately, lots of things happened with the funding for that production, and we couldn't actually make it. So I've been wanting to do something with them, and this guy Mark Dawnford-May, who was one of the co-founders, came over to Durham because they wanted him to do something they were going to do the City of Culture in Durham, but that didn't happen either. But they liked his proposal so much he started up this theatre company on the same basis as the theatre company in South Africa, where they train people as well as form the company. So it's a sort of way of training new actors, but they form a company and do new work. So it made a lot of sense to bring some members of the company from South Africa because they'd done this process before, and it's a wonderful collaboration.
It really is. And what's lovely as well is that there's so many people who don't have access to kind of training and kind of getting into theatre and being able to be around and become professional as well and do it properly, where people are paying to come and see you. So just to have that opportunity to be around people and work with people like you, like that's insane. They get to work with Lee Hall. That's mental. And I guess for some people it might be their first job as well.
It's everybody's first, apart from the South Africans who have done this for many years in South Africa, but all the British people it's their first job, so it's really exciting.
And they're all from from that area as well.
Yeah, all just from Durham, and largely from this few towns, which are all basically the Billy Elliot towns. So it's really exciting, because I think it's become harder and harder for young people to get training because it's so expensive. And you know, if you can't travel away from say the northeast, it's really problematic, because it used to be a lot easier in my day, and so anything I can do to make that easier for the next generation of performers and artists, again, it's a real privilege to be able to do a little bit to help.
What I like about you and just your work is that you're so proud of being from the Northeast, you know, and there's always like little hints of, my heritage and where I came from and all of that stuff. Because I know that you studied at Cambridge, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and then, but there's always, it's not like, I'm from the Northeast and then I went to Cambridge and then I'll forget about everything else. It's like, no, actually roots and society and giving back to where you came from is quite important to you, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, very much. Well, I mean, I think, I suppose like a lot of people, I came to theatre and this whole world without knowing anybody in it and not really expecting to ever be allowed into that thing, but always when I first started, I came, well, what have I got to give? You know, these people know much more about it than me, and then I realised, well, actually, wherever you're from, you bring so much culture with you. Your culture is not something that is just posh and you learn it. It's actually it's the life, the community that you've lived in and been brought up in, and realizing that there were so many stories and so many ways of telling stories and music and the poetry of everyday life and you know, the poetry of the Northeast, the dialect and things, that was so rich. And actually that's why I could give to other people by allowing, you know, showing that off. Things that kind of, I don't think people look down on different cultures, but they don't have access to them unless you make something which celebrates where you're from. And so I clocked quite early on that instead of trying to write sort of the posh Royal Court play or whatever that I thought I needed to do, is actually I should just, you know, be myself and tell the stories of me and my friends and the neighbours and my family. And that's how Billy Elliot happened, and a lot of other things, and then that's led to doing things which aren't about my culture at all, but because I learned a bit of craft and storytelling in doing that.
Yeah, and it's wonderful that you're showing that regions outside of the South have something to give and stories to tell and quality as well. That's the other thing, isn't it? Because I'm a very proud Midlander from Wolverhampton, and I'm like, hey man, we need more stuff happening in the Midlands. We need a Lee Hall in the Midlands.
No, quite right. Well, you know, I think one of the things, well, it's probably about everywhere, but I was brought up in England, but you know, where you're from, the local identity is it's so rich and so clear, and so, you know, and the way you speak, it's so fantastic to hear you, you know, and we need, you know, and that's what makes stories. The great thing about theatre is the more specific and local you make it, the more universal it is. And that's why I think things like Billy Elliot, there's a production in Korea going on at the minute, and another one in Japan, and it's the second or third time they've done it in Japan, Korea. But if I thought 30 years ago when I sat down to write it that anybody would do it outside of Newcastle, I would have just laughed. But so that's the marvelous thing about theatre, and especially musical theatre as well, because it has this ability to travel and speak to people.
Thank you so much for watching and listening. However you're consuming this podcast, please consider subscribing, liking and leaving us a 5-star review, as this helps us to reach a wider audience. Your support is very much appreciated. Now back to the show. The thing is about you, I'm like one of your fans. I'm like, I'm gushing over here. I rewatched Billy Elliot the other day, and yesterday I had another listen to Spoonface Steinberg.
Oh, wow.
As well. I did. I managed to find out the digging for like ages. And just, I was going to ask you about how your writing has developed over the years, but just from the beginning, you were just amazing, right? You're just one of those people who's just naturally talented. Because I was watching it, I was thinking, oh my God, the layers in this. Because I remember when you read some of my stuff, you were like, okay, we got the layers and the depth within these characters. But it's like you automatically had that gift just with you anyway, because you said you didn't know anybody who was in the industry. Maybe you read a lot of books and probably placed yourself within the environments of other people who were doing that. But for those concepts and those ideas to come out of you at such an early stage in your writing career is just incredible. It really is. I was lying on the floor listening to Spoonface Steinberg, and I was like, wow, like no wonder Lee has gone on to win like everything. Do you feel like you're like when you're sitting there writing, you're thinking, this is good, I know that this is good, or are you just writing? What are you thinking?
I suppose because I've done it for a long time now, I try and write. Sometimes I can't write every day, but I know that when I'm the playwriting days, if you like, I try and do a 9 to 5 and I always try and do maybe 5 pages of stuff, which isn't a lot when it's in a play format. But I think and so I don't really try and worry about if it's so great, but because you just have to be there. And then sometimes and I think lots of writers talk about this, sometimes just something seems to take over and the ideas are like ahead of you and you're kind of trying to type them down. And sometimes I type something and then I just burst out laughing because it's funny, but I hadn't known it was funny until it had been written down. And I think it's it's this experience I think a lot of writers have, that I guess it's your unconscious or it's your muse, whatever metaphor you use. It's something that you're not necessarily deliberately able to do, because then every day would be brilliant. And but it's kind of, and you sort of and if you're lucky, you can catch on to that feeling and just keep going. And then after a little bit, it drops off, and then you're going, oh, I don't know what happens next or whatever. But I remember that Spoonface, when I wrote it, I read and for anybody who doesn't know it, it's an hour-long monologue for a 9-year-old autistic girl. And I had this idea that that's what I wanted to do for the radio, because I don't know why, and I didn't know if it was possible for a 9-year-old to actually act it.
And she did it brilliantly.
And she did it brilliantly.
Phenomenal,
it was amazing.
Yeah.
And I didn't really I had a rough idea of themes, but then I wrote it. That's the only thing I've written which it took me 2 days, and I wrote it almost, I wrote for about 5 hours each day, and that was it. And I didn't touch it. So it's quite rare to get that sort of automatic writing thing where it just spills out. But I think in every play I've written, there's a little bit that's the writing takes over you, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think it's because you're accessing something that you know much more deeply than just your normal language of putting something together, the craft of things. It's because you're saying something that you know in a different way than learning, if you see what I mean.
Okay, right. And it's not about the subject you're writing about. It's about the like you said, the actual act of writing.
Yeah, it's sort of like well, I'm sure you know as a performer that you know when you hit something real and you've accessed something there. You know the lines and you've done them a few times, but you can watch it in a performer that you can see that they can, in a rehearsal, you can see them say those same things loads of times, and then suddenly one time something clicks inside of that person, and you can feel it yourself. There's some energy, I don't know what it is, and then once you've found it, you can repeat it. You know, a performer can repeat it, but in rehearsal, I'm sure you've had that experience.
Oh, yeah. When I've been learning stuff, I have there's like a wave when I'm like, oh, I've got the lines now. And then when I'm really, really, really in there, it's like I almost forget that I've done it, if that makes sense. It's like you're not within yourself. You actually become the character. It's a strange feeling. Yeah.
And so that's a bit like being inside the creation of the character, is that same thing. Suddenly you forget you're trying to invent it, and it invents itself because you've hit on something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is in performers either. That it's almost like you forget yourself to create the thing.
Watching and listening to your work, now that I'm speaking to you, I totally get what you're saying, because it was so easy to listen to. That hour just went by, and and anything else that I've watched, it just flown by, and you're like, oh, I've like watched the whole thing, and like it felt like 2 minutes, because it's natural, it's just flowing, and you can feel like that you're not trying to find it. And I guess if you did try, you might lose it, right? If you overthinking things. So when you're saying about that you don't have, there's days where you don't write, is that deliberately not writing?
Mostly it's because I find it hard to do, like if like today when we're going to do this conversation. I haven't written today. I won't write today because I think I need to be in a sort of zone where nothing else is happening, and I just I can get into it. And I get up and do it very early, and I don't stop until I'm exhausted, kind of thing. But if I get up and read the news, and then my brain is all full of other stuff, and I find it much harder.
Okay. It's so interesting listening to people's methods, isn't it? I mean, sorry, go on. You were going to say something else.
No. Well, and I think everybody's different. But because I've been doing it for 30 odd years, I kind of I know what's easiest. What's the easiest situation to get to that space? Where you. Well, I suppose it's like, you get in a groove or there's a flow. I mean, the music metaphors are easier to sort of understand, I suppose, that because they're more they're more instant if you're playing something and you hit that thing and it really works. And that's what all writers are trying to do, to get in that groove and then stay in it as long as you can to see what you can get out of it.
So if you've started writing and then say someone comes and disturbs you, is that ruined for the rest of the day, or can you get back into where you were a minute ago?
I can, and you have to, because there's always meetings or you have to do something, But it's harder to, for sure, for me, and I have the the privilege of being able to do that. I'm not doing other jobs. For instance, I only do this job, but I think but I think people, if you've got kids or something, you snatch whatever time you can, and I'm sure I would have had to do that, but I've been lucky enough to only be a writer for a long time.
To only be around and give like hundreds of millions of people lots of joy all across the world, just that tiny little thing. It's so great, honestly. So you were saying that maybe being a writer isn't something maybe you were expected to do, perhaps, being from the Northeast. What was like the reaction from your family and friends and stuff when you were like, I'm going to go and do a creative thing?
It's sort of, I think my family were like baffled. My dad used to, he originally he'd worked in the shipyards, and then he had a van, used to go around cleaning people's carpets and their sofas and things. And I used to work with him when I was a kid on the weekends. I used to go and move furniture and do these things. And he would say, son, when you leave school, you'll work with me and we'll get you your own van and we'll go. And I was like, I'm not quite sure. And so they were a bit baffled, and they thought, well, I mean, nobody knew anybody who, we didn't really know people who'd gone to university, never mind people who might want to be a writer or something like that. So I didn't really, so they had no idea. But I had these amazing teachers at school, and also outside of school, there was this basically was a youth theatre. It was like a youth club, but they used to let us put on plays there, and then people from the university would come down, teach us about Bertolt Brecht and this type of thing. It was really mad, really. And so a lot of my friends from Newcastle, from Tyneside, we met, and a lot of them I still work with today, because a lot of them went to become actors, and I went off and then became a writer. So by the time we were in my mid-20s and we'd come back from training, as it were, back to Newcastle, there was a group of people who I'd known already I'd worked with and put on plays with for 10 years. And so I could write for them, and they knew how to do my words. And so the radio the plays that I first wrote, and some theatre plays, and even Billy Elliot came out of this group of people, and me writing for people who were my friends, and we've had this relationship for the last, it's getting on 40 years now.
Oh wow, that's brilliant, isn't it? I mean, that's lovely to have that collaboration over that span of time. Were some of your friends in the Pitman paintings?
Yeah.
Well?
I mean, I think at least half of the Pitman painters were either from my school or from this youth theatre that we went to when we were sort of 16, 17. And then there was a few older characters who obviously weren't a part of our group, but so they were all my friends, and by the time we did the Pitman Painters, we'd done sort of 8 or 9 different shows together in different formats. And because I guess that I don't see being a writer as being isolated from. You're part of a company of people or a group of people, and theatre, well, as you know, it's such a collaborative medium that I think one of the great pleasures is creating something with a group of people. Whereas if you're a poet or a novelist or something, you're very much you're on your own basically, but the joy of theatre is other people.
For sure.
They can also drive you mad, of course.
You're like, I'm gonna go in again. Oh no! Yeah. It's sort of so joyous to have
created something in your bedroom on the computer, and then you give it to an actor and it sings in a way that you couldn't have imagined, because everybody's bringing themselves to this thing. And so it's just a joyous moment when you go, oh, either that's what I meant, or oh my God, I meant that.
Oh,
That's incredible. and both things can happen. You can be really surprised. What you think it means isn't necessarily what it means when it's in somebody else's body and voice, and that's quite an incredible thing.
And are you discovering new things about your writing? Like you said, like, oh, I didn't realise that's what I meant. Does working with your friends, and because they know your words so well, are they able to just grasp the characters really, really quickly? Are they like almost in your head?
Yeah, if I work with that group of people, I think also because even if I'm not writing specifically for that actor, although quite often I do, so I know what works for them, but they also know if I'm writing about somebody else from the Northeast, who that person was, what kind of person that was, what they would eat, how they would stand, what they would think and say and feel, and that's a good shortcut. And so I don't have to explain very much. They get it because they can recognize the signs in what I've written.
And that's lovely as well. Sorry, just thinking about going back to the cultural thing and getting people who were from there, born and bred, or have been around and steeped in the culture for such a long time. You can't kind of replicate that really, unless you go off and do a Daniel Day-Lewis or something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the thing about acting, is it's transformative, and people you can be. The whole point is you're being somebody else. However, if you can access and recognize something from your culture, it's gonna be richer, and it's gonna. And I think the Daniel Day-Lewis and you can, but it takes an awful lot of work for an actor to be able to inhabit something which is completely outside of their culture. I think both things are possible, but it's just one of the joys that I've done is, I mean, even the Billy Elliot surprised me, because people would say that the Northeastern accent was quite a hard one to replicate. Yet we'd go to America and the voice, the person training the kids would make them sound exactly like a Geordie, but they were from like Brooklyn or something. Like, how is that possible? So the joy of one of the joys of theatre is transformation, and another joy is to be able to hold something which is uniquely yours and unique from your own culture and share that. And so the sort of twin bits of theatre which I love.
So you're on tour at the minute, and are you actually? So you're researching a film. Are you allowed to tell us anything about it, or is it all?
No, I can tell you about it. It's a film. I was commissioned by an American producer to write about a pianist called Glenn Gould, and Glenn Gould was a Canadian pianist, and in 1955 he made a record of some Bach that's called the Goldberg Variations, and it became the best-selling classical LP of that era. And he was very young. He was about 23, and he was a genius. And nobody really played Bach like this guy. And so he sort of made Bach popular in a way that he was in the classical world, in a way that he'd been sort of seen as like, no, why are you playing that old rubbish? But key to the story is that one of the reasons he was so absolutely brilliant is because it's very clear now he was autistic, and he had this brilliant capacity to play, and he was extremely clever, but He wouldn't shake hands with anybody. He would wrap himself up in this big coat and wear gloves all the time. He was very, very awkward in public and hated. And when he was 30, he gave up playing in public because he just couldn't stand being on display. And so the film is really about him being undiagnosed, and so what he did was he medicated himself by going to doctors and asking for sedatives and Valium and all of these things, and died really quite young because he kind of ruined himself, but because he didn't really this is my idea, that he didn't understand that he was neurodivergent because it wasn't a thing then, and so he was trying to cure something that you can't cure. It's just who you are if you're autistic, so it's this. So it's the story, but again, it's got all this music in it, which is the bit I love, and the bit is why I think that they asked me to do this. But I've been researching and I've been talking to some people who knew him, and they're quite old now, but I'm getting them when I can.
You're getting them. So where have you had to go in order to speak to all these people, or do you do it online?
I've been doing a lot online, but I went to that Glenn Gould was supposed to have never had a relationship ever, because he lived with his parents for a long time and then he lived alone. But a 96-year-old woman has very recently come out and said that her husband was his best friend, and she left her husband and went to live with this Glenn, this pianist, and took her kids to live with them. And so a big part of the movie is like they arrive there, but what happens to the relationship when he's never lived with anybody and he's sort of he's autistic and finds the whole thing of falling in love like completely undoes him. So that's a big part. So I've been talking to her about what actually happened, because she's not really said this in public before, because it was all very a secret. So it's been fascinating to find this story that nobody's really told before.
I bet it has, yeah. And so how long have you been researching it for, and how long do you think it'll take you to put the screenplay together?
I think I've been researching it for the last sort of maybe 8 months, and I think it'll take about 3 more. I've been writing for about a month, and I think it'll take about 3 months to write. It takes me probably about between 3 and 6 months to write a screenplay for the first time, and then you go over it again and again and again and again. But and I mean, most screenplays they take people years, and it's very, very rare to be working on a screenplay that gets made straight away. So I mean, you might go through maybe 20-30 drafts, I think, once, especially when you get directors and actors and producers and funders, because they all kind of read it and see different things or want different things out of it. And also you find you find different things in it once you've written it, and step back and think, that it needs to change there, or that beginning doesn't work, and so I kind of see writing, whether it's plays or films, it's a bit like tending a garden rather than building a sculpture. It's always changing, and you have to go back and change things, and you might lift out that bush and put it somewhere else, but it constantly needs kind of tending, which is, and because I think also, even when a show is running, it sort of changes because the performers find things, and it changes, and they find things clearer or easier, and sometimes they're taking it too far,
right?
And you need to drag them back. But it's never the same every night. But over a period of time, you can also go, oh, I missed something that they are able to reveal to you, that you go, oh, I see, you don't need that speech, or you do need something for that character here. And the great thing about theatre is you can go back and change that. Sometimes it's hard once the run is going, but if you get a new cast or you transfer it to a tour, that very often I'll use that opportunity to go and make some changes, because I've seen things that I hadn't seen when we started rehearsal. It's really interesting how it's a living thing.
With film, you kind of have to just there it is, it's set in stone, and then just let it go, I suppose, because it's not like you can go back. I mean, there's always a director's cut, isn't there? Like, 15 years after Godfather came out, or whatever it is. But I guess it's one of those things where it can't live and breathe and grow, and you can't film extra scenes because it's ages later and everyone's aged, or something like that. You've got to just do it.
That's right.
Is there a preference between the two, or are they just completely different mediums and then that's it?
I think, it's much more... I think I write more naturally in a screenplay form, because I think quite visually, so it's easier for me to say, oh, we're here in Newcastle in a bar, and then they're up in the countryside in the next scene, and to use those. I think like that. What's hard about theatre is kind of you have to get your characters and actors on and off. You can't just go cut and by magic it's over. You have to think. So it's quite complicated in terms of the craft of the thing, and you've got to make it feel right. But it's much more fun making theatre, because in a film, you're in a room, nobody's ever all in the same. All the people who are involved in a film are never in the same place, apart from maybe the read through and then the premiere or something. But in theatre, everybody has to be there every night, and and every rehearsal, and so you're that is a completely different experience, because you're sharing it with and making it with a group of people, and that's true of a film, but that weirdly that group of people might not even know each other, because somebody is in the edit suite and then somebody's doing something on the set, and you just it's like passed along a long chain of people, and everybody's important in that chain, but in the theatre that you're all very often in the same room making it happen.
Yeah, and I guess with theatre, in terms for your writing and everything, you can get probably instant feedback in previews or in rehearsals to be like, oh yeah, that works, that doesn't work. But I guess when it's filming, it's like, well, we just got to wait until we have a screening.
Well, I think in film that it's the edit room that you can try out different combinations and see what, and you can make something, you can make a scene up that you haven't actually written, if you take bits from all sorts of things, and you can take a sentence from there, somebody saying no, to where you hadn't written that, and make a new scene where somebody says something that they didn't actually in real life. But definitely, as you pointed out, that you rehearse a play and then you put it in front of people, and it's only then you really start to find out what you've done. And very often it's you go, oh, I didn't know it would do that. Like sometimes an audience can react badly or very, very well to certain bits. And so I think that's why they have previews, is that it's a chance to really shape and cut something, because theatre's not finished until that audience. The theatre is about the audience meeting this group of people who until that happens, you haven't completed the process. And when those two things come together, you know, you really want to kind of you shave bits off to make it a good fit.